You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hello, and thanks for joining Revolution 250, where we look at events that took place 250 years ago this week. This is from the American Revolution Podcast, just a short bonus episode to remind you about these important anniversaries from the Revolutionary War. This was supposed to be a weekly episode, but this week there was just too much happening, so enjoy this bonus episode this week as we remember the Battle of Grape Island. By May 1775, the siege of Boston had settled into several weeks of boredom. The British in Boston and the New England army surrounding that city were divided by Boston Harbor. Neither side could easily get at the other, but many of the militia were eager to do something. On May 13th, Connecticut General Israel Putnam, for no good reason, led 2,000 men onto the no-man's land in the Charlestown Peninsula. The battalion marched across Bunker Hill, Breed's Hill, and through the town down to the water's edge. There, they shouted at the naval vessels with cannon pointed at them, and then eventually turned around and marched back out of Charleston. It was a dangerous move for no good purpose, since the Navy might have opened fire on them. Putnam felt it was important to give the soldiers something to do. An idle army is a dangerous one. It also gave them the chance to test the enemy and see how trigger-happy they were. British officers aboard the Somerset said they would have opened up on the Provincials if any of the men had fired a single musket in their direction. Everyone on both sides held their fire, though. Putnam and his brigade marched back off the Charlestown Peninsula back to the Continental lines in Cambridge. Now, no one ordered him to do this, and Putnam did not inform any other general officers about his plans. This was just another chaotic event that shows how disorganized the provincial leadership was. The British in Boston, though, were growing concerned about their access to fresh food. The siege cut off trade with local farmers. They lacked fresh meat, fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as hay for the horses and bedding. Several small islands dotted Boston Harbor, where locals grew crops and grazed animals. With the British Navy in control of the harbor, General Gage figured he could make use of these resources. On May 21st, Gage sent 4 small sloops over to Grape Island on the south side of the harbor, just a few hundred feet from the mainland. The island's Tory owner gave Gage permission to collect the harvested hay on the island and bring it back to Boston. The sight of regulars deploying out of the city caused some locals along the coast to flee, fearing a surprise landing. Patriot General John Thomas, serving with General William Heath on the right flank of the provincial line, deployed 3 companies of Massachusetts militia from Roxbury to engage with these enemy soldiers. Provincial Congress President Joseph Warren also joined them. The provincials fired at the island from the coast, but were too far away to be able to really hit anything with their muskets. The regulars went about loading the hay onto their ships, largely ignoring the provincials that were on shore. Like much of Boston Harbor, the water around Grape Island was too shallow for most boats, but the water and muddy bottom made it too difficult to wade out to the island either, so the provincials really couldn't get to the island from the coast at low tide. By early afternoon, though, the tide came in enough for the provincials to launch boats. They rowed out to confront the regulars. There, the 2 sides exchanged fire as the regulars retreated. The regulars boarded their ships on one side of the island, just as provincials landed on the other. In the end, neither side was able to inflict any casualties. Now, I've read 2 different sources, one saying the British burned all the hay that was still on the island to deny it to the provincials. Another one says the provincials burned the hay after chasing off the regulars in order to prevent them from coming back for more. In either event, the crops remaining on the island were burned, so no one was going to use them. A few days later, on May 25th, the British landed a crew on another island, known as Long Island, in the harbor to obtain more hay. This raid was further away from the coast and ended up going without incident. Both sides were dug into their lines. The British were waiting for reinforcements. The Americans were hoping for the arrival of some cannons. But until something changed, neither thought that they could take the offensive, and the siege continued. I hope you've enjoyed this Revolution 250 moment. For more on this story, check out episode 61 of the American Revolution podcast.